Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. I am Dingjo Curry, Director of Leadership Institute for Tomorrow, LIFT, here at Cal State Fullerton. On behalf of LIFT and the California Community College Chancellor's Office, welcome to our Classified Professional and Career Advancement webinar series. We are very thrilled to have you here today with us. The Leadership Institute for Tomorrow was established to serve the needs of community college leadership pipelines and to impact the system of higher education and our communities by developing a new generation of diverse, confident, and competent leaders with change agency to improve our community colleges, universities, and organizations into a just, equitable, and inclusive institutions, free from racism and thrive in unity. That's our goal. We provide a variety of professional development opportunities and materials for classified professionals, as well as entry and mid-level managers at the national level. We are very privileged to collaborate with the California Community College Chancellor's Office in producing these webinars to enhance the diverse pool and capacities of leaders in our system. We believe that a rising tide lifts all boats and that professional development for classified professionals is equally important, if not more, toward reaching the goals of vision for success. So speaking of vision for success, you may not be familiar with the goals or will need a little refresher. So here's a quick review. In over a 5-year period, what we are trying to strive toward is increase by at least 20% the number of students annually who acquire associate degrees, credentials, certificates, or specific skill sets that prepare them for an in-demand job. Annually increase 35% the number of students transferring, decrease the average number of units accumulated for students earning associate degrees, and increase the percent of students completing CTE programs reporting being employed in their field of study, and also reduce equity gaps in faster improvements across all those measures that we just mentioned among the traditionally underrepresented student groups. And lastly, reduce regional achievement gaps across all of the above measures through faster improvements among colleges located in regions with the lowest educational attainment of adults. So as you can see, all those goals is going to take all of us making contributions toward those goals. So if we have unified laser focus, I know that we can make it happen together. So this particular series of webinars are informed and inspired by classified professionals' own responses to the DEI Professional Development Needs Assessment Survey completed in 2022. So maybe you did participate in that survey last year. We want to acknowledge the support and guidance of the California Community College Classified Senate, 4CS, and California Schools Employees Association, CSEA, on behalf of the California Community College Chancellor's Office. Thank you for being our partners in this effort. You know, we believe the continuous learning and growth of classified professionals is critical. Just for a moment, you know, imagine our institutions without classified professionals. Can you even do that for a second, right? I think that you will find that classified professionals hold up more than 50% of our sky. If you do without classified professional, we will lose more than 50% of our human resources on our campus. And your campus will be a lot less diverse. So that's why enhancing and elevating the capacity of our classified professional is key to help our system, campuses thrive in ensuring the success of our students. So finally, I wanted to let you know that this webinar is presented with live captions. I forgot to mention that. If you need them, they are here available to you to use. And we hope you will enjoy the webinar and gain valuable insights and knowledge to advance your career as a classified professional. Now, you may not be a classified professional joining us today. Good for you for joining us. So whether you are a trustee, administrator, or faculty member, please always think about the classified professionals as you are valued colleagues and a talent pool for future rising leaders on your campus. I want to thank you for joining us today and hope you will have takeaways to support your or your fellow colleagues' career development. So today's topic is chosen from a list of you want to knows. It is the pathway to the professorate. It is our goal that in a short time we have, that you will gain lots of insights to the faculty's role and responsibilities, learn your career navigation to become a faculty, part-time or full-time, and to understand the education and training that's needed. And of course, we hope to inspire you in becoming either a full-time or part-time faculty. Should you choose to do so, we do not want anything to stop that aspiration. So why is this topic so important? Faculty maintains a powerful position in the American higher education system. That is undeniable. While the classified professionals have a much more diverse representation, but there's still a lot of disparities, significant disparities, if you will, in the representation. According to the American Association of University and Professors, I tell you that 74% of our faculty nationwide is still occupied by white, while only about 5% Black occupy the faculty position. And also Latinx and Hispanic population is about 6%, while even less for Native American faculty make up about 1%. So women faculty are also represented about 42%, while our female students and the undergraduate level have risen to over 57% representation of our student body at the national level. So where and how can we grow more diverse talent pool for faculty? One of the pipelines seems to be easy to identify. Look to who are already in the system and can be developed into faculty members, full or part-time. So with us today, I have a panel to help me on this topic. We have an excellent lineup on the panel. So let me introduce them to you. First in alphabetical order is Ms. Manar Hijaz, professor at Chaffey College, and Dr. Maisha Jones, who's the acting dean of academic affairs at Los Angeles Southwest College, and David Morse, professor of English, Long Beach City College. And last but not least, Laura Ramirez, vice president of instruction, Pasadena City College. So let me turn to our panel and pose the first question to you. Why should we encourage classified professionals to think about and assess their interest in becoming a professor and teaching? As you know, faculty is not just restricted to teaching. There's counseling, also being a librarian, also in the faculty ranking. So I hope you can include a little bit about your own background, how you self aspire to serve in the faculty role. Why should they be aspired to become a faculty?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Curry. Yes, I'm David Morse. I am a professor at Long Beach City College. I'm also a past president, both of my local academic senate, but also of the statewide academic senate for California community colleges, and have also served as a college vice president. So I've had the opportunity to serve with classified professionals at a lot of different levels. And I would say, to answer this question, there are two ways to look at it. Why should we encourage classified professionals to think about entering faculty positions? One is for your own sake. It's a great job, a job with generally a pretty good salary, with a great deal of independence in terms of scheduling, in terms of the way you go about doing your job. And also, as Dr. Curry kind of alluded to, the fact that faculty have an important voice, probably more so in the California community colleges than in any other educational system, in the country anyway, just in terms of the importance of the faculty voice and the inclusion of the faculty voice in college planning and in college governance. So you have a lot of room to influence your workplace. And there is, there's a cliche about wanting to make a difference, but I think for us, it's not an abstract cliche. You can see what you are doing and the effect that you are having on people's lives working with the students in our system. I think the other way to answer the question is, why should we do this for the sake of the system? And Dr. Curry alluded also to the issue of diversity. And yes, classified staff is generally more diverse. But the issue of filling positions in terms of diversity shouldn't be just about hiring people on what they look like or who their grandparents were. The important issue should be who can best serve our students. And it's been a long-standing feeling in the Academic Senate of California Community Colleges that the people that we need to hire people who know and understand and care about our students. The simple fact that somebody's got a PhD from Stanford and may happen to be of a minority background does not make that person actually connect or know about our students. Classified staff work with our students, know our students, very often have come from our student ranks. Who better to be able to relate to and to connect with our students, to actually care about them, than the people who work with them on a regular basis, and again, who have themselves been students. So that is, I think, a very important aspect. There is not only a benefit to you as classified staff, but it's really an important thing that would help to improve our faculty ranks by having people in the faculty positions who really want to be there, who care about being there, and who understand the students they are serving.
So thank you, Dr. Morris. I think that's really important to note, that our classified ranks across the state are definitely more diverse than our faculty ranks. And most importantly, they're usually more connected to the local community. At least that's what I have found at different institutions I've worked at. I think it's important to note that, especially in our CTE areas of instruction, having that workplace experience is really valuable. It is true that there are many faculty that have never worked outside of academia. Whereas many of our classified professionals, just in the nature of their work, it's a little bit different, right? You're not in a classroom. It's a much more traditional employment, like out in the private sector. So I think those experiences mean a lot and go a long way in the classroom. I think what's also important to note is that many of our classified have been in the system and understand a lot of what's going on system-wide and the institution. So especially if you engage in committees, especially if you're engaging, for example, in financial aid, you're very well aware of the new laws. You're very well aware of what happened with COVID funding, right? And how that impacts students. So I think many of our classified support have a lot of one-on-one interaction with students that goes a long way in helping support not only what happens in the classroom, but what as faculty we need to be providing students, right? It's more than just being in the classroom, we're done, we're dismissed, but those connections outside of class that many of our classified engage in, especially in some of our support programs, right? Our EOPS, our CalWorks, our staff there know a lot about our students and their very practical needs. I think it's also important, I found, that we know today many of our students are working, right? They're working students. It's not a traditional, I get to go home, mom and dad take care of me, I can come to school and enjoy being a student. Most have to work, and amongst our classified ranks, many are still going to school as they're working. And so showing how that can be done, you know, you're still a working professional, you're a student, and you can lift yourself professionally. I think that is a great mentorship type of and you know, thing to provide to our students. And I think our classified have a great ability to do that.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Ramirez. And I really want to extend that, going back to your point about financial aid. And so I was a classified professional working in the financial aid office for about 10 years as an assistant, a technician, and then I felt like I hit a ceiling when it came to supervisory roles. I took that not as rejection, but redirection to shift my focus on what other roles I might be able to occupy. I knew that I had a reach, and all of classified professionals have an impact and influence. With the gifts, the skills, the talents, and the abilities you already have, it really was about cultivating that in a different space. And so recognizing the capacity for growth and change really leads to reassessment of all of our collective roles as educators. No matter if you're in maintenance and operations or in the IT department, we are all educators with a plethora of opportunities around us, bringing out the best not only in ourselves, but also that is contagious. And so we have a responsibility as we work in these institutions to model, to demonstrate the transformational quality of higher education. And so if you're thinking about a career as a non-instructional faculty member, maybe as a counselor, college counselors provide students with the keys to success. They give them those initial guidance, tips, strategies, and tricks to help them navigate institutions, to lead them towards graduation, transfer, workforce placement. All of that, again, is harnessed within your current role. And I think it's really, really important that you think about how you have the capacity to prepare a future leader transitioning from a classified to an instructional or non-instructional faculty role.
Thanks, Dr. Jones. I kind of want to echo what all of my co-panelists said, and that transition part that you just mentioned has a lot to do with my background. I actually started out as a tutor at Chaffey College, and then I got my master's degree. I was teaching political science classes, as well as in the Success Center. I was teaching workshops as a part-time faculty, and now I oversee one of our Success Centers at Chaffey College. And I can say that, like, I wouldn't even be here without the support of the classified staff in that journey. And so there are a lot of reasons why I feel like many of you should pursue faculty positions. I would say first, colleges need you. There's a huge problem with lack of faculty diversity in higher education. Many of my colleagues have mentioned that. Dr. Curry talked about some statistics, and I remember even reading a report, and I want to say it was the California Community College Chancellor's Office report, and it was in 2021, and it talked about like student demographics at the time. I think it was about 46% were Hispanic and 23% were white. And at the time, only 17% of tenure or tenured track faculty were Hispanic, and almost 60%. And you know, the statistics that Dr. Curry gave were even higher than that. And you can find similar percentages across community colleges all over California. And I want to say that it's really important to pay attention to the data, because colleges will often boast about their diverse workforce and employees. But when you look closely, they're not disaggregating data by classified staff and faculty. So they're grouping them together. And since classified staff are typically, those positions are typically occupied by individuals of color, it's going to skew or paint a false picture about diversity at those colleges. So colleges need more diverse faculty if they want to serve students from underrepresented backgrounds. Students need you. They need mentors. They need people who represent them. They need people who look like them. And increasing faculty diversity will just create more inclusive environments for students. And there are so many studies that talk about increased faculty diversity and how it has positive impacts on grades, on retention, and general student success. And then the last thing that I want to say is other faculty of color need you. The few faculty of color that are actually hired at colleges higher ed institutions have a really hard time in retaining them. And there are so many studies that talk about turnover among faculty of color, and there's so many reasons to that. Lack of support, feeling undervalued. They're often left out of networks that are important for professional advancement or career success. So I think it's important to diversify faculty because it will also help create networks of support for faculty of color who are already at some of those institutions. So I hope all of you, for these reasons and all the great reasons that my co-panelists mentioned, consider going after some of the faculty positions.
Oh, thank you. You mentioned quite a lot of reasons already. It's interesting that Manar, you mentioned that one last. It made me reflect 40 years, more than 40 years ago. That actually was a reason that I stayed in community college, because I was contemplating leading, and people say, that means our percentage is going to be less. So that was a motivator for me.
I'm glad you stayed, Dr.
Yeah,
Kirk.
so I appreciate you mentioning that. So David, there's a lot of myths about the work of a faculty, right? We don't always see you 40 hours a week on campus. It's not like classified professionals. Some classified professionals are tied to the desk, their workstation, 40 hours a week, you see them. So can you share with our classified professional, what exactly is the roles and responsibility of faculty? I know you're in the classroom, but why is it that oftentimes we don't really see you?
Right. Well, the classroom is the first thing. And yes, that's so a normal, first off is the teaching load, and the normal teaching load in most places is about 15 units per semester. Depending on the discipline you are in and what you are doing, that could be anywhere from 3 to 5 classes. And of course, with library and counseling, it's a little bit of a different equation with the number of hours worked there. But there's also a great deal of prep time, grading time. You have to prepare your classes. You spend a lot of time on grading, or should if you're doing your job right, and various other, researching. There is ongoing professional development that all of us need to engage in order to make certain that we stay up to date with what we are doing. Of course, there are also, in terms of the obligation, also office hours, which are required of full-time faculty, and in some places of part-time faculty, and other obligations, just technical in terms of filing grades, making certain that SLO information is turned in, a degree of engagement with analyzing and working with the SLO data. But the other important thing on this is college service for a faculty member does not, it's not just teach and go home and do the rest of your work at home. You are also expected to serve the college through work on various different ways, committees, work groups, as a club advisor. There are usually a lot of different possibilities and a lot of different ways people can serve the college. But again, there you are expected to serve the college in those different ways. And committee work can involve a lot of different things, from the academic senate to the union to curriculum to technology to student services. There are many different opportunities that you can engage with the college. But again, the important thing is that you are expected to do more than just teach. That teaching formally is supposed to be 15 hours of what is supposed to be at minimum a 35-hour week. And frankly, most of us work a lot more than that when you figure in the grading and the prep work. There is a difference with full-time versus part-time, because part-time faculty are not usually expected to do committee work, but they can. And it's not only in the college's interest to have part-time faculty involved, but it's generally in the faculty member's interest, because that helps to build your resume and probably helps to advance your possibilities for becoming a full-time faculty member eventually, if that is the ultimate goal. So what is allowed for part-time faculty? What's required for part-time faculty varies much more college by college. Again, some expect office hours, not all do. The opportunities for participation in committees and such depends not only on the college, but sometimes on individual departments. But those are things that faculty are generally always engaged in, and the full-time faculty are required to be engaged in what frankly usually turns out to be sometimes significantly more than a 40-hour work week.
But you have some flexibility within those.
Oh, absolutely.
There's outside of the classroom, 15 hours in teaching. If I have 25 hours, to fill, that has flexibility among that.
as I said, there are lots of different options, a lot of different ways you can engage with the
Mhm.
college. And yes, a lot of that teaching and preparation and professional development are things that you can do on your own time. So you certainly have flexibility in how the way you schedule it. Yes.
That's great. All right. Manar and Maisha, I'm going to ask you to the next question. You know, different strokes for different folks. So what creates joy in your work that may not be the same for me? Because everybody being a faculty has different things that really inspire them. So what's the biggest joy and impact in serving in the faculty role that maybe one cannot garner that from being a classified professional?
I would say for me, it's seeing and hearing about the direct positive impact you make on student lives. And I think it's important to note that classified professionals have contributed, have made immense contributions to colleges that they work at. In fact, I think colleges could not run without the work of classified professionals. And the work that you all do has direct impact on the success of programs, which correlates with direct impact on student success. But unfortunately, and this is something many classified staff have shared with me, that they don't always get the recognition that they deserve. I find that being in a faculty position, you won't necessarily get it from like other people you work with, but you'll get it often from students. And so for me, one of the biggest joys of being a faculty is like that direct contact with students. And when they tell you how much you've contributed to their lives or their educational journeys. Funny story, I once ran into a student at a farmer's market, and they introduced me to their family, and then they said, I failed your class. So like, I was really embarrassed. And then they're like, no, but I loved it. It impacted my life, and it actually made me take it again. And I passed it the next time. So then I was like, okay, that's fine. But even in that moment, like where they literally just said in front of their entire family that they didn't pass the class, they talked about how much the class impacted their life, which, encouraged them to work hard and try to pursue it again. So I think that's one of the big things for me.
Yeah, an extension of that, I would definitely say, is the opportunity to build lasting relationships. My experience in the financial aid office, there might have been one-off encounters. You serve a student, you help them with their eligibility, you help them with the application, you may not see them again, maybe at graduation. But in the classroom, you have a semester, which is months long. If it's a summer or winter, it may be much shorter, but more intense because you're there every day for hours at a time. And here you get to build rapport, earn their trust, understand their life stories, see the joy, but also the productive struggle. You see the light, the spark go off as they are comprehending the material, as they are contributing to the discussion. You see the scaffolding and the incremental gains. In addition to that, I would say it's autonomy and ownership, where I get to create curriculum, where I get to incorporate and infuse the student voice as their representation is also showing up in the material that I'm using. I also like that it's an always on. And I say I like that because it gives you that space to be creative and innovative, and the stakes are higher when it comes to that. But you do get a winter break, a spring break, and a summer break, where you get to kind of deconstruct, unpack, and then shift your focus. I cannot really say I went to sleep thinking about financial aid applications too often.
Mhm.
But again, for me, it's a different joy and a different impact teaching in the classroom.
Great, that's very meaningful. And you do get a lot of breaks, right? Because that's why for the classified professional, the faculty come back from the summer. How was your summer? Well, my summer has always been here. Right? Yeah. Laura, as a vice president of instruction, I know you hire a lot of faculty. And so tell us, what do you look for when you hire either part-time or full-time faculty? And how does our classified professional, their experiences in being the classified professional, help them toward that end?
So first, having that classified experience needs to be highlighted. That needs to be very much highlighted in your application, highlighted in your interview, direct experiences that you can share about working with students, about opportunities to help students, that goes a long way. I think that's very important because it shows that you're thinking about the student in a more holistic way. I think it's important to note institutions may have slightly different hiring processes. And the one thing I'll say is don't think that you can only be or transition into the professorate in your home institution. Spread your wings. I know it's scary. It's scary for all of us. I did it too, and it's not easy, but that's really important too. Apply at different institutions and take every experience to interview. That's not an easy thing to do. We don't do it all the time. So any opportunity you have to interview, jump on it. Know that for most institutions, part-time faculty are not hired by the vice president directly. You'll interview with faculty, with the department chair, maybe the dean, and that's where the decisions are made. So the first thing is make sure that you're somewhat aware of what that hiring process looks like. Typically, you submit your resume for a part-time faculty, you're interviewed by your colleagues. So if you're at your home institution, and even if you're not, our system is very small. There's faculty that work across many institutions. I currently work at PCC. I teach part-time at another institution. So it's a small world. We know each other. And believe me, people are going to reach out and say, hey, do you know so-and-so? That happens. Just that's important. So for part-time, typically it's done internally within the department. If it's within your institution, get to know the department. Know where you want to go, get involved in supporting maybe the faculty and the students that are linked to that department. That will help them get to know you, because oftentimes what faculty are looking for is this someone that's going to get along with the rest of our colleagues, right? Is this someone that we can help and support, but also someone that we can lean on when we maybe need some help on a project within the discipline? Does this person represent the values of our discipline? That's important too. So let them know who you are. On the full-time ranks, know that the vice president, the president, they see the finalists. So the challenge is be a finalist, right? Get to the end line. And so that means, again, that when you're interviewing for faculty amongst that committee, which is usually faculty, they may have a classified rep there. They may have a student there, right? They will likely have an administrator. Typically, it's the dean. So during that process, again, make sure that you highlight your classified experiences. And what I look for when the finalists come to my level is I look to see, do they have an understanding of what the institution is working on right now? So if right now that institution has a goal of, advancing guided pathways, of ZTC, of diversity and equity, of having a service culture, whatever it may be, you don't need to know all the details, but at least have an understanding of what that means and how you would apply it in your classroom. That tells me you've done your homework. You know who we are. So that's really important. I also look for, does this person have a connection in some way outside of the classroom? So for example, if you're looking for a position in the social sciences division, do you do any kind of work with community organizations? If you're looking for a teaching position in STEM, in the sciences, are you part of a professional organization? Do you go to ACS meetings? And it doesn't have to be direct, but something outside of the institution where I see this person is really interested in continuing their personal professional growth, because that's only going to carry forward to our students. So those things are really important. Do you have a knowledge of what that professional work is like? So what Dr. Moore shared, do you know that it's not just teaching and calling it a day, that the expectation is you're going to work on maybe student outcomes, learning outcomes? Do you know that we have initiatives here having to do with student clubs, our guided pathways work? Are you excited about our distance ed committee? Right. So making sure you understand, again, you don't have to know all the details, but know that the work is also outside of just teaching in the classroom and how you're going to contribute to the campus community. I think that goes a long way as well. And then the other bigger question, this is always difficult, is is this someone that's going to be a good fit for that group of faculty? So if I know that, you know, the faculty in a certain discipline have a very strong commitment to DEI, are you going to fit into that? If I know that this committee is very big on data and, you know, making sure they're using data in how they develop their curriculum and they have common curriculum or common expectations in their discipline, is this person going to be a good fit? Because I don't want to create, you know, problems for that division or for that department. So those are some of the things I look for. And again, making sure that, or trying to figure out if this person's interest and heart is in the right place and it's advancing our students.
Laura, can you just follow up and talk a little bit about what kind of academic training requirements is required? You know, several of you here have doctorate, and that could be very intimidating. So can you talk about, is a doctor, a master's degree, absolute requirement to teach?
Not
or
across all our
being a librarian? Yeah.
Yeah, not across all our disciplines. So, you know, we have to follow the Chancellor's Office MINQUALs. And for many of our disciplines, yes, there's a master's degree requirement. That's a minimum requirement. But in many of our CTE programs, or just about all of our CTE programs, it's an associate's and 6 years. It's a bachelor's and 2 years of experience. In some of our non-credit, things like DSPS, non-instructional programs, they're much more specific, or they're looking for experience. Non-credit, many of those faculty positions are an associate's degree again, and 6 years of experience, or a bachelor's and 2 years of experience. And by experience, it's something that you can relate, doesn't have to be teaching experience, but something that relates to the discipline. So if I want to teach, for example, CIS, I could teach that if I have a bachelor's and 2 years of experience working in the field. Not in education, not instructing, but in the field. What's important, I think, is that when you do interview, that you demonstrate how, as a working professional, you had to impart your knowledge to another human being. So that goes a long way, right? You don't have to be a classroom in a professor in front of a classroom of 60 people to tell me you can teach. You can tell me, you know what? I've worked with student workers. I've worked with new employees. I've trained them on our software. I followed up. I made sure that they had the tools they needed. I checked for understanding. I made sure I was available when they had questions. So the Chancellor's Office, definitely, depending on your background, go to the Chancellor's Office, look up the MINQUALs. I think we can share it, and see where you fit. It's not always just a master's degree. A doctorate is not required in any of the disciplines in the community college system, nor for administrative roles. Our administrative roles do not require a doctorate in order for you to get into the administration ranks either.
All right, that's quite a lot. Thank you for sharing that. Well, David, let me ask you this next question. And that is, you know, there's a saying about sticking close to those who you want to become. So what are some ways which classified professionals can become more involved and closer with faculty or Senate on their campus?
Okay, so in order to formally teach in the classroom and to be the teacher of record, you do have to meet the minimum quals, as Dr. Sanchez was just pointing out. But there are a lot of other possible opportunities. You might look, first of all, at your college for, some colleges have mentorships, that sort of thing, in which people can participate, especially people who are prospective faculty members. There are teaching aids. There are various different ways in which participation in instruction, through teaching aids, through tutoring, again, through mentorships, that might be allowed. But you can also connect with faculty and understand the other aspects of the faculty job. Number one, many meetings are open meetings. Academic Senate meetings are legally required to be open meetings, and so are many others. You can attend those meetings, observe, sometimes participate officially, and depending on the specific committee that may be going on, there may be formal positions open for classified staff as well that you can fill. Many college committees have those kinds of openings. So number one, find out what is available. When you see and hear things going on at the college, find out who's in charge and make it known that you would like to be involved, even if there isn't a formal position involved. So if you work with a department, for example, if you were an administrative assistant for a dean, Express interest in going to the meetings. You might be able to help out. Our administrative assistant takes notes at our department meetings. There are various ways in which you might be able to find a role, and you will be more exposed to faculty conversations and what faculty are doing. So to a large degree, just talk to faculty. If you are invited, once again, as I think was mentioned earlier, to social events, just to get known by the faculty so that they know you, so that they have talked to you, so that they know where you are coming from. Social events, college events. And I also want to acknowledge for what I'm talking about with going to meetings, and that we all know that's much harder for classified staff than it is for faculty and administrators, because you have a specific schedule where you're expected to be in the office. So that makes this transition a lot harder in a lot of cases from that point. But talk to your supervisor, show interest in what's going on, express an interest in being able to attend certain things. And hopefully many supervisors would want to encourage that level of involvement and would try to work with you to make it possible for you to be more involved in that way.
Yeah, speaking of, I can't imagine anybody on campus, if you express, I have a desire to, explore being a faculty, that someone would say, oh, you don't want to do that. Okay, let me turn to Maisha. I hope by now that we have inspired some participants out there thinking that maybe I want to check out how I could become a faculty. So if they are inspired, can you give us some tips, what they want, what are tips of those who want to pursue a career as a faculty, either full-time or part-time?
Sure. I echo a lot of the sentiments my colleagues here on the panel have already expressed. I would start with the why, that purpose question. A lot of introspection and reflection, because it really is not about a title. You really need to consider the role and responsibility that comes with it. How do you envision yourself as an educational leader in the classroom, in the library, in the counseling department? As you go about that, as was just stated, seek support from your direct supervisor, right? As you're on this pursuit, because it may be that you need some time off around finals if you have to go forward with attaining a higher degree. I also think it's important to reject the idea of being hyper-independent in this journey. We are not self-made. We all rely heavily on mentors or femtors to guide us through to make connections. Leverage tuition reimbursement programs and/or some contractual language also gives you time away that you don't have to give back if you are pursuing that higher degree. If you have the qualifications, apply to the adjunct pools, talk to the department chairs. Leverage right now is an extremely significant opportunity to teach with our dual enrollment programs. There are a lot of traditional college faculty who may not want to go off-site and spend time with our K-12 partners, and this may be your en route. Ask to shadow and observe current faculty to see what their day-to-day looks like. In our district, we have the Project Match program where you get a little bit of that training and you get a mentorship and you're placed with someone in that discipline. And for a lot of those participants, that also will qualify them for the next semester of teaching. Get certified in the learning management system, because we are not shying away from remote learning. And so if you can do that now so that you are able to teach online, that is another way to be flexible and get into this field. Tutor, conduct workshops, facilitate training. All of that is very similar to teaching experience. Also, as was also said, serve as a member where you are actively engaged, not just a fly on the wall, in the decision-making and shared governance committees. That also elevates your visibility and shows a little bit of your leadership capacity. Volunteer for special projects and assignments, and please keep current on relevant research so you know the trends in higher education in this system and others, labor market and other demands that will definitely have implications, policy changes. Please stay current, if not engage in that research and contribute to that body of work. Those are just some of the critical steps you can take to qualify yourself and be one of the best and most competitive candidates for a potential future opportunity.
Thank you, Maisha. I think Laura and David alluded to this earlier, that we're looking for quality people, right, to serve in the faculty roles. But we look to the classified professionals not only for quality, but also this is fertile ground to grow future diversity of our faculty. So I want to ask Manar, what are compelling reasons? Why is diversifying our faculty hires important to our student success?
So there are several compelling reasons. I don't have time to cover everything, but I'll touch on a few things. First, I would say diverse faculty have a positive impact on student outcomes, completion, success rates, grades, and this has been demonstrated by several studies. And this is, I think, especially important because one of the urgent priorities of higher education has been to increase the number of students who obtain degrees. So we need them to have, we need higher completion rates, higher success rates, and hiring more faculty of color is one way to do that. Second, I would say the absence of minority representation in the faculty pool really creates like challenging experiences for underrepresented minority students because they don't have mentors, they don't have individuals they can identify with. And they typically have shared, and several studies also show this, that they cannot identify with a mostly white faculty population. I'm actually currently working on a dissertation, and it's on the impact of faculty diversity on underrepresented minority students' sense of belonging. And what I found after interviewing underrepresented minority students is the majority of the participants said that faculty of color had a direct contribution to their sense of belonging. And what's more important is all of the participants talked about the importance of representation and how when they don't see faculty of color or when they don't see faculty that look like them, it makes them feel like those jobs are unattainable for them in the future. And they shared that the opposite was true when they do. Like some of the students talk specifically, like, I remember when I had my first Mexican professor, I went home and I talked to my dad about it. Like, would you have imagined this? And they said, I could see myself in that role because I had that instructor. And I think this sense of belonging piece is really important because there are so many studies that show a direct correlation between sense of belonging and like higher retention rates, higher graduation rates. So when students feel a stronger sense of belonging, they're more likely to succeed, they're more likely to persist. And so we have the data to support the need for hiring diverse faculty. Like we already know that it needs to happen. And now I think we really need to recruit. And I think the classified professional pool is just a really great place to recruit from because, as some of my co-panelists have mentioned, you all have the experience working with diverse student populations. You all have, contributed immensely to the colleges that you work at. And so you would just be a great addition to that faculty group at your college. So I hope, like I said, many of you consider going after those jobs.
Great. Thank you for that insight. And we want to read your study when you're done. We're going to share that with the chancellor's office, right?
Yeah, I hope so.
Yes. Thank you for shedding light. At this point, we've heard a lot, but we still have a lot more to learn. And we heard some tips that was given by Maisha about becoming a faculty. I would turn to our entire panel right now to see if you could use the last few minutes to share some special advice, maybe possible first steps in becoming a faculty after our participants are inspired today. Maybe something that is not commonly known, perhaps, unless they're in this webinar, might be secret pathways or shortcuts that you think that would really help them. Would you mind sharing that with our participants today?
Absolutely. I gave a few steps. I'm going to incorporate a few more. I think it's really important to start by assessing your current skill set. See how that aligns with the minimum qualifications, and if there are any opportunity gaps for additional training or additional experience, seek that out. That experience, it may be moonlighting in the industry or the profession as a consultant if you're self-employed or working with the public or private sector. I also think it's important, again, leverage the resources and supports that are available to you. Working in higher education, you likely have some contractual language to help support your career growth and development. I think it's also to more importantly, remember how significant you already are in the positions that you occupy. As we think about your positive and valuable contributions, you are the bread and butter. Folks come to you before they come to the classroom. And so you're almost a gatekeeper already in student success. Lastly, I would think about succession planning. Because of the wonderful job you are already doing, folks may be really, really attached and not want to let you go. So think about if there are opportunities that you can begin identifying and training someone up to replace you. And if you might be willing, if you do transition, to provide some transition support for that person who's going to come in.
Great.
Thanks, Dr. Jones. I really want to echo a lot of what you just said. I absolutely agree with all of that advice. I would also add joining like networks, committees, and groups on campus. I think this will give you vast experience and understanding of like the ins and outs of different departments. When I was part-time, I remember becoming part of a CCFA, which is the Chaffey College Faculty Association. And I recall my first few meetings, like I didn't understand a lot of what was being said because I didn't have experience in those areas. Like people were throwing around acronyms and like, you know, it's very much this group. And if you're not part of the group, you just feel very outside of it. So, you know, with continued experience attending those meetings, I felt like that gave me a lot of experience when I started interviewing for faculty positions. So if you can be part of, I mean, you know, certain faculty associations, you have to be faculty to be in them, but there are other networks and committees and groups that you can join. I would also say to talk to faculty, and, you know, Dr. Jones mentioned this, talk to faculty in the areas that you're interested in working in. You know, maybe you talk to them about like what they do and you realize, okay, maybe this isn't the faculty position for me. And there might be another faculty position that better suits your skill set, that better suits your interest. And then I think establishing relationships with faculty, you know, on the campuses that you work at, or like maybe campuses that you're interested in working at. I can't tell you how much great advice I got from other faculty on, you know, just becoming a more desirable candidate, tips on like, you know, I would have, you know, even send them my resume or like things like that. Just when you have those types of relationships established, those faculty can be mentors and help support you in your journey in becoming a faculty yourself. So those are just some other things that I think would be helpful.
Great.
So there's been a lot said already, but I wanted to add just a little bit. I think it's really important that as classified, you learn what are the rules at your organization, at your college. In some places, classified are not allowed to teach, especially during their workday. That's just part of their collective bargaining. That doesn't mean you can't look for another institution. So it's important to know what are the rules around teaching for classified. And I think some of the things that were already mentioned, make sure that you serve on committees on campus, that you make yourself visible, that you have a voice. And also understand what the shared governance process looks like at that campus, right? At your campus. How does the decision making happen? How recommendations are made, and then be part of professional organizations. Attend conferences. That's where we learn a lot about what's happening at the state and locally as well. So get involved.
And I would say, first off, once again, you've got to make certain that to be qualified or get qualified. So making certain that you do meet the qualifications for the positions that you are interested in. And if there's additional work you need to do to become qualified, then to get started on that. To make yourself known once again through both social events, through professional events, through attending committees, but make yourself as known as you can with faculty and with the people on your campus. Check for mentorship programs, for other kinds of things that may exist on your campus that might be there to assist people to move forward into faculty positions. But I would also say, first off, the first step is pretty much always looking for a part-time position. Very few people jump directly into a full-time faculty position. So there are exceptions, but for the most part, you're probably going to need to be part-time first. So, and to do that, you may need to look at other colleges for various reasons, not only because there are more opportunities, because as Dr. Sanchez, I think just said, there may be rules for what you can do at your college. There are also kind of legal aspects of this that if you're a full-time classified staff member, then also teaching at your own college may be difficult to do because that would put you over 100%. And therefore that might not be allowed by your district. But again, depending on where you are in the state, there may be other colleges nearby and you may be able to pursue things at another college to be able to get you started. So call other places. Colleges have their phone numbers listed on their websites. So you can get into contact, call department heads for the departments you're interested in, call human resources, find out how to go about applying and express that interest and get yourself involved that way. And I would say be persistent. Many of us applied for a whole lot of jobs that we didn't get. So again, you may have to blanket. And again, if you're in an area with a number of different colleges, don't limit yourself. Apply in various places. You will increase your odds of somebody giving you a call and wanting to talk to you about a position. It takes a lot of work. And again, if you are also trying to be a full-time classified employee at the same time, it may be difficult to do. But I just want to stress again that it is a great job to have. And it is something with all kinds of benefits, both on a kind of a financial and just as a kind of a technical level, but also from an emotional and from a feeling like you are doing something that matters level. So it is something that I think we would encourage you to consider and to look into.
My goodness, thank you very much, everybody, to help me to thank this wonderful panel today. And I also want to thank the Chancellor's Office and our LIFT team in joining the joint planning and implementing our webinar today. Lots of information. But if you still have questions, there, like David said, there are a lot of people on your campus that you can turn to that will help you. If you don't have it, please let us know. David, you're at the State Senate too. You can help, right, from the Academic Senate at the system level. So please do not let your question unanswered. In the chat here, you will see a link for evaluation and feedback for our webinar today. We really want to thank you for just taking a few minutes to give us your feedback. They are very, very important. Your feedback is valuable for us to know whether we hit target and how can we expand further on the topic itself. We want to thank you for joining us today and also let you know the next webinar will be on April 21st. And that topic is, what can I do to stand up to injustice and inequity? Because we do know that that intersectionality with classified professional is often that you find yourself at that crossroad. So please do not miss that one. I want to thank you again, our panelists today, and thank you for attending. We'll see you next month.